Hey everyone, welcome back. As you can tell, we're in the basement here. We started some framing. In a previous video, we installed our subfloor that we're going to use with the dry barrier, which is working out real well. And we are actually putting our framing, in this case we're doing a bedroom, but we're putting our framing on top of the dry barrier, which is another great feature. It keeps your walls off the concrete floor. So today we're going to be framing a bedroom wall, and we're going to go through the steps of how we lay it out, mark the lumber, cut everything, put it together, and finally stand it up. And hopefully that helps some of you guys out there who are tackling some of the same project. Okay, so one thing we picked up that we thought would be a great help for almost the entire basement is one of these budget laser levels from a company called Huepar. I'll put a link in the description below for this particular one. It's a crossline 360-degree green laser level, and it's already come in handy. You can see it on the white poly here how well it lights up and marks the room for us. So we decided with this bedroom, and in order to have a hallway that not only meets code for the width, but something that doesn't feel like we're getting real claustrophobic, we decided to angle the doorway and eliminate a 90-degree corner out here at the start of the bedroom. So what I've mocked up down here is just a cut on how we're going to actually cut our plates to make this 60-degree angled wall, and we're just about ready to mark this out, take it out to the saw, get this cut, and shoot our bottom plate down. So we looked at doing a 45-degree angled wall here because it's one of the simplest walls to frame up and piece together, but we just weren't happy with the room we lost inside this space. So we decided that we're going to try a 60-degree angle instead of a 45. So that's what we've mocked up here. And this is one of the easiest ways to actually figure out how you're going to cut and mark your wood. So we've got it mocked up. We know it roughly fits. We're attempting to bury this support post inside one of the walls. So that all looks good. So we're pretty much ready to just make a mark on our plate and take this out to the saw and get it cut and see how it fits. Okay, so like many of you were building this during the pandemic, and lumber prices, because of the demand, it's off the charts, and the lumber prices have at least tripled. So we're trying to cut lumber down, we're trying to use up what we can to save a couple bucks on this build. And for example here, we've got a pressure treated bottom plate that has a bit of a crown to it. So we're going to show you how to make use of this piece of lumber. What we're going to do is we're going to fasten it on one end, we're going to fasten it on our mark on the other end, and then we're going to push the center out to flush up to our laser mark that you can see here. So you can actually take a look. We've got the laser set up along this piece of wood, and you can take a look and you can see the variance on this piece of lumber, but we're actually going to straighten it out. It's just a bottom plate to be used as a part of the floating framing we're doing here. So yeah, we're going to try and make use of everything we can. All right guys, there's a couple of ways you can fasten your plate to the concrete. One is with a hammer drill, an SDS drill, and Tapcon screws. Another popular method is with a Ramset gun. The one I have here is one of the newer models. It's a trigger activated gun. So the traditional one, you'd have to compress it with your shot and your pin and hammer the top. This, you compress it in place and you simply pull the trigger. So it's a real nice tool. We're using the 22 caliber shot. We're using a 3-inch nail made to fire lumber into concrete. So we're going to go ahead and load the gun, put on some hearing protection because it is loud, and we'll get this first corner shot down here. Okay, so we're gonna grab before we put the shell or the shot in the gun, we're gonna put our fastener in. Just insert it like that. Once you have that in, then we're gonna take our 22 bullet, pop that in. Now we're going to get our plate where it needs to be. Here we go. We're simply going to push down on the top, compress the tool, straight up and down, pull the trigger. There's our first corner shot into the ground there. Just that easy. Alongside the laser, to give us our line, which is kind of replacing a traditional chalk line that you would see snapped. The one benefit I really like about the laser level, I'm using it to put my bottom plate down straight, and I'm also using it as a mark to line up the top of our wall when we frame it up on the underside of the joist there. So it's It's really a great tool, and it replaces the traditional chalk line and sort of the plumb bob setup that you would use, which works equally well. I'm really liking the way this this kind of becomes foolproof for the do-it-yourselfer. So along with having the laser, we're also double checking just a couple measurements here from bottom plate to bottom plate, just making sure that our wall is exactly where it needs to be before we shoot the other end down. Okay, so we're going to attempt to straighten this board out here. We got both ends pinned, and we got our gun. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the center of this board. You can see the gap, and I'm just trying to equal the gap by pushing on the board until I get it nice and straight like that, and then I'm going to shoot it. Okay. All right, we're getting set to lay out our framing and get our wall put together and stood up here. And we got our laser set up to give us our top reference line for the outside of the framing. And look at what I found. A builder installed hardwired smoke detector, which looks like it's just gonna brush the edge of our wall. So we certainly are gonna have to relocate that. I'm probably gonna look at moving it from this joist over here, or maybe one further yet. So again, pay attention to any obstacles. This is a newer build, but it's not without obstacles. When you've got our bottom plate all fastened down, it's all straight. We are square in the corner. And what we're doing here is called a floating wall system, and that's just in case our slab decides to move over time. We've got a little bit of a buffer. We've got about 3/4 of an inch from our wall to our bottom plate in order for that to move up and down. So now we're going to measure for our studs. So we're doing a bit of a mock-up here just to get to figure out what the length is supposed to be. So we got what represents our bottom plate, top plate. We got our 3/4 inch gap underneath. So there's our mock-up. And now to determine how long our studs are going to be, all we're going to do is climb up and measure from our mock-up lumber to the underside of the joist, and I get 86 1/8. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this measurement at 3 points down this wall, just to make sure that I get 86 1/8 all the way along, because the floor could be a little bit out, or the joist could be a little bit out. And if I happen to get something less than 86, then we're going to take the lesser measurement, and that's going to be our stud length. So I've checked the middle. It's also 86 is going to work well there. And here I've got 86 3/8. So we got a little bit of a difference. I'll cut the studs at about 86, and that'll give us lots of room to get this wall. Hey guys, one thing to pay attention to when you're framing, you always got to take a look at your obstacles up above. So if you look down our joist, we got a real unobstructed run. I moved a hardwired smoke detector out of the way, so we got an unobstructed run until we get to this corner. We got some PEX water lines, and our first wall here, we framed it to hide a telepost, and that kind of forced us to center ourselves under this beam. So as you can see, we got a little bit of a lip here to deal with. So and we've got these water lines up above, which come out of they come out of off the beam about what, 6 inches or so. So yeah, I'll show you how we're gonna deal with this. We're gonna frame our wall like we normally would, because we got to butt up tight into this corner here. We got to butt up square here, and then we're gonna make an adjustment right in this very corner. And I'm most likely gonna have a bulkhead here anyway, so we're gonna make a slight adjustment to the framing. I'll show you how we do that, and then we're gonna move on with standing up this wall. So most lumber, almost all lumber, has a crown, meaning it'll curve a certain way up or down. So what you want to do is work with it, but you got to make sure all your crowns end up in the same direction. So you grab your board, you look down the edge of the lumber. This one I can see curves down, and in this wall we want our crowns on the outside in the hallway area here. This is our top plate. I'm just going to mark a C on this, And I've already done the other one here with a C, so I know that my crowns are facing up. And we're going to do the exact same thing with the studs. Okay, let's get to laying out our lumber here. So what you want to do is butt the ends of your boards up together so they're flush. And don't ask me why, but this is typically done left to right. That's the way I feel comfortable doing it. There's lots of content on this, guys, but I'll give you my my take on it. I'll show you how we do it. Tape measure, carpenter pencil, and a rafter square. So start on the edge, flush your lumber up. Now you're going to have a stud right on this end. And the thickness of the stud is 1.5 inches. So on my square, it's got marked measurements here, 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 2 inch, 3 inch. So I'm going to flush this up with the end. I'm going to put a mark on 1.5 inches, move my square over, scribe a line, and this is where my first stud's going to go. I always mark an X where the lumber goes, just in case somebody else is helping me line up when we're framing. Okay, so then grab your tape. Now almost all tapes, you're going to have 16-inch centers marked out as well as 24-inch centers. What we're shooting for here is 16-inch centers. So you can see there's a red mark at 16, there's a red mark at 32. So here's what I typically do. So your 16-inch center would be from the center of one stud to the center of another stud. So start from the end of the board, find your 16, and back up 3/4 of an inch and make a mark. And then come down to your next stud location, 32, back up 3/4, make a mark. We're going to continue 47 1/4 all the way down the board. Find our next center of our stud, back up 3/4 of an inch, make a mark. And we're going to have one stud on the end that we'll mark out. So once you have all your marks, double check that your boards are still flush on the end here. Grab your rafter square, head down to your first mark, make a line across. X is on the right hand side. These X's tell you where your studs are going to go. And do this all the way down. The reason why we're using 16-inch centers, we can probably get away with 24s in the bedroom here. But we're trying to soundproof part of this, and nothing structural down here, but we have the material. I honestly think it's going to be a stronger wall, a better wall. So we're going ahead with 16s. We're going to be mounting some electrical in here, maybe a TV mount. So it's better to have a couple extra studs for what it's worth. Okay, we got our top and bottom plates marked. We put them together up against the pressure treated plate we got nailed down earlier. Now it's time to grab the studs, bring those in. Same thing. Check your studs for the crown and put the crowns up. Okay guys, we got all our studs roughly lined up. Come over and grab your bottom plate, top plate, bring it down the end. And there we go. We roughly got our first wall laid out. Now we can start. Ways we can do this. We can use screws and an impact gun. We can hand nail it, which works just fine. I prefer using a framing nailer, so we got a 30° to 34° clipped head framing nailer. And this actually makes quick work of this and gets these things fastened right where you want them. Line your first one up. Fire a couple nails in. I'm gonna do this all the way down. Don't forget your safety glasses. It's better to be safe than sorry than to take a ricochet in the eye or something like that. So now this board has the crown up and I'm pushing down on the board, flushing up this edge here, and then I drive my 2 nails in. We're done on the one side. We're just gonna shove this wall down from the plate here, make some room for ourselves, and we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. We'll catch up with you in a bit. Okay guys, sometimes you'll run into lumber that has a bit of a twist to it, a bit of a bow. How do you use it? How do you fix it? Grab yourself one of these framing hammers with the claw on the bottom there. Take your hammer, hook it on your plate, line up, and you can actually lift up and twist this board into place. Line up your marks and nail it. Same thing, we got a stud over here that has a bit of a twist to it. So hook on your hammer, line your marks up, twist your stud into place. There. Now you save some lumber. Okay guys, we got our wall put together, and I'll just point out a couple things. To go around the water lines at the top of the wall, the obstacle there, and to get underneath the beam, I added a little bit of a notch just by adding 2 pieces of lumber and cutting out the corner. And the other thing I'll mention is over here, because we're trying to use up lumber, we needed about 11.5 feet in length. I added a splice, and you can see our 30-degree cut there for the angled wall to meet up with it. So I added a splice on the top and bottom, and because this isn't a structural wall, that splice will be totally fine. Anyhow, we got it all done. We're ready to stand it up and see how it fits. So let's give it a shot. Well, we got our wall stood up, and everything fits pretty good. I had to add a little shim at the top just to keep it level, but it's all square and plumb. So you can see up here where we went around our water lines, and I'm most likely going to do a bulkhead along this beam. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to handle that yet, but probably a bulkhead. And you can see how we floated the bottom, pressure treated bottom plate on the subfloor. Everything's built above the subfloor. And we got our 2 angles here, so we're ready for our 60-degree wall, top and bottom. Looks really good. Off to a good start. Okay guys, thanks for tuning in once again. We're gonna leave this here. When we catch up next time down here, we're gonna be working on our angled doorway. There's definitely some obstacles there to go around. We got the beam, another post to bury. We're gonna be working on the closet entrance too. We're gonna have a walk-in closet in this bedroom just to keep all the bedroom space strictly for the bedroom here. But yeah, a couple walls up, we're off to the races. Everything looks good so far. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next one.